Peace, and welcome to another episode of the Quranic Remedies, where we spend about 15 minutes exploring a page from the Quran together and seeing how we can apply the verses to our lives. And hopefully, with God's permission, it helps us heal our brain, body, mind, and soul. So today we'll be reading from chapter 4, The Women, from verses 12 to 14. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Seek refuge to God from the accursed devil. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. The name of God, the gracious, the merciful. ولكم نصف ما ترك أزواجكم إن لم يكن لهن ولد فإن كان لهن ولد فلكم الربع مما تركت من بعد وصية يوصين بها أو دين ولهن الربع مما تركتم إن لم يكن لكم ولد فإن كان لكم ولد فلهن ثمن مما تركتم من بعد وصية توصون بها أو دين وإن كان رجل يورث كلالة أو امرأة وله أخ أو أخت فلكل واحد منهما السدس فإن كانوا أكثر من ذلك فهم شركاء في الثلث من بعد وصية يوصى بها أو دين غير مضار وصية من الله والله عليم حليم. You get one half of what your wives left behind. If they had no children. If they had children, you get 1/4 of what they leave, after fulfilling any bequest and paying off debts. They get 1/4 of what you leave behind if you have no children. If you have children, they get 1/8 of what you leave, after fulfilling any bequests and paying off debts. If a man or a woman leaves neither parents nor children, but has a brother or a sister, each of them gets 1/6. If there are more siblings, they share 1/3, after fulfilling any bequests and paying off debts without any prejudice. This is a will from God. God is knowing and clement. تلك حدود الله ومن يطع الله ورسوله يدخله جنات تجري من تحتها الأنهار خالدين فيها وذلك الفوز العظيم. These are the bounds set by God. Whoever obeys God and His Messenger, He will admit him into gardens beneath which rivers flow, to abide therein forever. That is the great attainment. ومن يعص الله ورسوله ويتعد حدوده يدخله نارا خالدا فيها وله عذاب مهين. But whoever disobeys God and His Messenger and oversteps His bounds, He will admit him into a fire wherein he abides forever, and he will have a shameful punishment. Sadaqallahu al-Azim. God the Great said the truth. This is a carry on to the verses in regards to the inheritance. Now, one thing that we have to realize on the reason why we start with the wives or the spouses is God is making a condition that if they have children, or if they had no children, or if they have children. So we are now recognizing that if that individual has children, then the portion is different. So because we are starting with this condition that God has set, it is obvious that we're supposed to start with the spouses. And you notice now when it comes down to the women, they get 1/4 of what you have left if you have no children. But if you have children, then they get 1/8 of what you leave. So now that we are talking about a rational number, like a fraction of a number, what ends up happening is that we see that these fractions need to actually add up to a whole. But when we take, for example, in a situation where the sons are getting 1/3, and the daughters are getting 1/3, and the parents got 1/3, but now you have an eighth that is outside of the thing. And usually those people that say that there's a contradiction in the Quran, there's a contradiction to the Quran, it's always the spouse's fraction that is the extra. So anyone with a rational mind understands that the split is a little bit different, where from the 100%, I will take the portion of the wives and I will put that to the side, and that's already taken care of. And notice again from what we said last time, that this is after fulfilling any bequests and paying off debts. So I would have to take care of this first. So do I owe my wife any money? Do I owe anybody else any money? So in regards to my wife and who's around my wife, so I have given her that money that I owe her. And aside from that, I have bequested a car for her. So my car goes to her. Now I'm left with $100,000. An eighth of that goes to my wife. And now we've removed the eighth from it, right? So we've removed the eighth, which would be about 12 and a half gone from that. So we would be left with about 87,500. And that's now the new 100% that gets divided by a third for the sons, a third for the daughters, and a third for the parents. So that way, you're always getting back to the whole. Now, notice as well, the thing is that when we come down to the male, you're getting one half of what your wife leaves behind. If they had no children, if they had children, you get 1/4 of what they leave. There is an interesting idea that because you are the one who's inheriting more from your wives than the kids, is because you're the one who is in the position of a disciplinary to the children. You are the one who is supposed to be taking care of what these children are going to be in the day, as they grow up. So it is essential for you to get that bigger portion. There are also, I know some people say that it's not fair that males are getting a bigger cut than the women. Actually, if you go up in the verse before, there's conditions where the mother is getting more than the father. If he has brothers or if he doesn't have brothers, it would change whatever the mother would get. Sometimes she gets a sixth and sometimes she gets a full third of what was left. Now, the other thing is here, God is telling us about conditions where if there is, I believe, kalalatan is in regards to you do not have, after fulfilling, if a man or woman leaves neither parents nor children, right? I believe it's more so about the parents here than the children. Kalala is one without a parents, but there are some people that say that it's parents nor children, but has brothers, then each of them gets 1/6. If there are more siblings, they share 1/3. And I believe the other 2/3 at that point is being distributed out to the community. And at the same time, I do believe that the children here would still be involved. And then they would get whatever's remaining cut up between the between the kids in a proper concept or a proper fashion. Now, one thing that I want to say about the verses before in regards to, let's say the person has just daughters and no sons. So we would give the parents the third each, and then whatever's left, that gets distributed between the daughters. So here, when we're talking about 1/3, it seems like the children are still present for them to be able to get what's left. So these group fractions and these ratios are presented if every condition is met, and if it's not met at that point, it needs to be distributed in a proper fashion. And notice again, when we're talking about the brothers and sisters here, fulfilling any bequests and paying off any debts. So this is again showing you how it's a distribution that is meant for itself without actually combining it with all the other distributions that are needed to be occur. But notice how God is also saying something in regards to without any prejudice. So there are some people who, unfortunately, they do leave behind bequests or make wills that is not fair. It's completely against what God wants us to do, where they might cut off somebody or they might give somebody way too much, and they're trying to hurt someone because of their will. In chapter 2, God states that if you correct some of it in piousness, then there's no harm in you. But if you're going to change somebody's will, then at that point you're in trouble. And after God is saying here without any prejudice, we go into the verse where God is telling us that these are the bounds that he set. And whoever obeys God and his messenger, he will admit him into the gardens, right, to paradise. And that is the great attainment. So notice how God is giving us the limits where these limits are going to benefit our societies to a point where it's going to be extremely helpful for many generations to come. Because we have now literally a cookie cutter system where it will always work for any form of distribution and any form of inheritance. But there is something here that's extremely amazing about this verse that is coming up. God says, but whoever disobeys God and his messenger and oversteps his bounds. Notice now when a lot of people say obey God and obey the messenger, they believe that it's like almost separated, that the messenger has his own commandments and God has his own commandments. Like God is setting limits and the messenger is setting limits, and God is giving things that are making things forbidden and permissible, while the prophet is making things, or the messenger is making things forbidden and permissible. But notice here, after God still stating God and his messenger, God is talking about the singular bound, which is saying that it's his bounds. He's not saying their bounds, right? So he's not saying that each of them have bounds, but only God has bounds. And the messenger's job is only to deliver the notifications or to inform people of what these bounds are. But God's saying that for that to occur, you have to obey the messenger, because the messenger is telling you said bounds. But it's God's bounds. The messenger has no agency for him to add or remove to these bounds, nor is he an agent in a sense where he is the one who's dictating what the truth would be. He's merely a messenger, as God calls him. Now, these verses, they are painting to us a very certain picture, that the inheritance is something that's extremely, incredibly important. That if we do not actually stick to the rules of God, it shows that we are not being pious, and it's about the worldly life. Some, as I said, take this as an advantage to hurt their kids or to hurt their parents because of having a bumpy relationship. At this point, you're not even on earth anymore, and you're not going to care about what truly happens to this money after you're gone, because it's not going to be existing when you're resurrected. The only thing that's going to happen, or the only thing that's going to benefit you, is your righteous deeds. So even if you have a problem, like a problem child or a parent that you never got along with, you should still give them the distribution that God has ordered for you to give them. And regardless of whatever happens with the money, at least at this point, you are a person who stuck to the bounds of God, that you did trust your God, and this is what your Lord ordered you to do, you do it, despite your feelings and emotions about that certain individual. It is a lot. This is quite difficult for a lot of people because of all the pain a said parent or a said child did to you. But for you to be pious in that moment and for you to be loyal to God is much better, and it's attaining you, it allows you to regain a lot of peace. There is a verse where God states that your wives and your children could be enemies to you. Some of your children and some of your wives can be enemies to you. But God is also saying to forgive and to forgo is the best way forward. So even when it comes down to your distributions and you're writing a will, which you should constantly have a will ready, you should include those that are problematic to you, that you sense that they have this animosity, this animosity between you and them. But God is telling us that whatever you do in regards to you being loyal to God, it's only going to benefit you, and it's only going to increase you on the day of judgment. God states constantly in the Quran, your money and your children, your wealth and your children, your wealth and your children. So now we have combined the two topics where your children and your wealth are going to be the thing that is left behind after you're done. And your wealth should be benefiting your children. As God states in these verses, despite them not getting the first distribution, but he talked about them first. He talked about the sons and the daughters, and then he talked about the parents, and then he talked about the spouses. Yet the spouses are the first one who gets the cut, the parents get the second cut, and then the children finally get what's left behind. But yet it's always going to be a way that is fair for the children, fair for the parents, and fair for the wives. It's such an incredible system that you see in the Quran. When God states that he clearly detailed his verses, he clearly told you what you need to do, that you have no excuses on the day of judgment, that you do not need to sit and have trial and error with whatever you have, because you technically have only one opportunity when it comes down to inheritance, and it has to be right. If we see the mistakes and the errors of those that passed away from before us, you can see a lot of the problems occurs when the father passes away or when a mother passes away, and inheritance now is on the table. A lot of people tend to lose each other's relationships when it comes to brothers and sisters or mothers or stepmothers and things of that nature, only due to over material wishes. But if people stuck and were accepting of what God has ordered, then this is the best step forward. And despite the Quran being present in the Middle East, one of the most pressing issues in the Middle East is people eating each other's inheritance, especially when it comes down to the affluent families in places like Syria, Jordan, Lebanon, Saudi Arabia, and Egypt, where one will rule over his brothers and sisters. He would take the whole inheritance and cut them out of the inheritance in ways that is just not applicable, yet they all claim to be following the Quran. But notice how God states that those who do go out of what God has put as bounds and limits, they're looking at hellfire unless they repent and fix themselves. God states that your money and your wealth will not avail you on the day of judgment, except if you were a believer. So yes, there is a portion of what happens with your money and what happens to your kids where it will benefit you if they brought benefit to the world after you were gone. This is something that is incredible to know, incredible like just to keep in your mind, because you should be working towards things that is going to benefit you on the day of judgment, and raising God-fearing kids and making your wealth be a way for you to make this world a better place is the best step forward. And however many people you help with your wealth, and however many people your children help with the way that they were raised, this is going to help you on the day of judgment. As I've told you many times before, us as the children of Noah and the children of Abraham and the children of Adam, our forefathers get, even if it's a small minor portion of a benefit, they would still get a benefit. And you yourself is getting a benefit for honoring your forefathers by being a pious person, the forefathers who were pious. When you're following them in truth, which is knowing the world mentality of how it means to believe in God, rather than to be a copycat or become part of a cult. With that said, I hope you guys are enjoying these. All praise to our Lord, Lord of the worlds, and peace be upon you.